Cobra have propelled themselves onto the putter market this year by revealing 10 brand new putter models. Now these sit across two very different ranges, the King 3D printed and the King vintage. Today I'm here at the gorgeous course in St Andrews to test these out. Right, let's get started. Now I've actually managed to get my hands on 5 different models from these two ranges. I've got 3 from the King 3D printed range, and from this I would say the most striking is probably the Agera. Now we've already seen Jason Duffner put this in play this year. It is a very large oversized shaping, but it's meant to have really good MOI properties and really good stability. Now I have got this in an arm lock putter, which I've never tried out before, so that should be interesting too, but we see a lot of putters in this range come in arm lock offerings. I think that's definitely influenced by Bryson, because you can obviously Cobra are going to want to get him into one of these putters in the future. Now in this range we've also got the Supernova, which again has a really sporty feel and shape into it and is quite oversized. And finally then we have the Super Sport 35. Now this is definitely themed quite heavily on that special edition putter they brought out last year, and I really liked the way that performed, so it's going to be interesting to see if there's any big differences there. Now next up, the vintage range is definitely a little bit more classic and traditional, so perfect if you find these models a little too big or maybe a bit too out there in terms of design. Now personally I love the looks of the Nova model in this range. I just think it's so classic. I really like the white bright alignment options here, so I think that might be one of my favourites, but it is worth noting there's a little bit of difference in terms of technology between these two ranges, so it's going to be really interesting to take these out and see if there's a difference in performance there. So I'm going to start off with the Grand Sport 35 here, and this is in the King 3D printed range, and I really do love the fact you can see all that 3D printed detailing in the back here. We can also see we've got quite a lot of large tungsten weighting in here, and that's going to help bring that weight to the perimeter and drive up that MOI and stability. I would say this looks more sporty and more out there than your typical blade shaping, but in terms of alignment I really like the different lines we've got that just helps you get that ball starting on the right direction and get your putter lined up really well. And I actually do really like that we've got the different contrasting colours on the top line, because I think that really helps with that kind of visual. Now across the two ranges, the Supernova here is definitely visually one of my favourites. I love the way it frames the golf ball, and you have these really nice sidelines which are brought out more by the different contrasting colours we have put the club here. Now obviously this is a slightly larger footprint than what we saw in the Super Sport, so that's going to just drive up that MOI, as we can see a lot more weight back here and further away from that club face. Now this is, it has this single bend shape. We'd have different options throughout the range, but this definitely suits me more than the short neck we see in some of the other models. Now most shapes do actually come with an option with both, so it's definitely good to make sure you pick that neck bend and hosel that's going to suit your stroke the best. Now although these are quite a bold and harsh shape and very out there, over the ball the feel is actually really soft and quite traditional, and I definitely really like that. It rolls out so nicely without you feeling like you really have to hit at it, which I definitely really like. Is this actually meant to be easier? Does actually roll pretty nicely. It's worth noting in these arm lock offerings, the loft on the face is a little bit different. We still have that descending loft technology, but instead of moving from 1 to 4 degrees, which we see in the more traditional shorter putters, these move from 5 to 8. And that's because typically if someone's using an arm lock offering like this, they're going to get more forward press and bring that loft down naturally anyway. Right, let's see if I can roll this in for 2 in a row. Bit firm. Now, I really do like the stability that this club head offers. It feels so stable over the ball, and obviously that's because you've got so much weight and MOI on the perimeter of this, and I also think the 3D tech in here just looks super cool. But in terms of the arm lock and the longer length, I'm not sure I'm going to switch to that. Now let's just touch a little bit on the technology. Obviously the 3D printed lineup is kind of the star of the show, thanks to these 3D printed lattices. Now these are actually nylon and they are super lightweight, and that just means Cobra can use that weight elsewhere where it's more beneficial. Now they did partner with HB to be able to make this happen, and you can see how the steel chassis and then this kind of aluminium top line all form around this nylon to form the putter. Now we've also got the sick descending face technology in here, so it moves from 4 degrees at the top of the putter to 1 degree at the bottom, and that's going to help you get that true roll wherever you hit it off the club face. Now obviously in terms of visuals, this range is pretty wacky, but the whole idea from Cobra was to push those boundaries and create something that was super stable and that also rolled really well. Now if we move into the vintage range, the visuals are quite a bit more classic and simple, but we still have that really excellent sick face technology in here. Now these are steel putters, and we do see some weight, not as much tungsten as we see in the other lineup, but we do have these adjustable weights on the sole. So onto the vintage models. I would say visually, this Nova is probably my favourite across both two ranges. I just really like simple shape. I like these little cutouts that make it look a bit more kind of out there, and I also really like these long alignment cues here and the middle central alignment line. Now generally I do use a line on my golf ball, so I just find this all matches up really nicely. Straight away, this feels a little bit lighter than the other range. We don't have as much tungsten as we see with the others, but we do have these adjustable weights, so there is a little bit of extra weight in there that's also spread out. But obviously in the others we did have a lot of tungsten kind of back and low. Sick face technology in here, so you can see these are rolling out really nicely and pretty consistently too. Now, although I've hit really nice and I really like the roll of them, I feel this was slightly less stable than the other options, just because there is a little bit less in these. Then again, these are a little bit cheaper too, so they really are different options for different. And I would also say these are more traditional, so if you're someone who doesn't really want that really out there wacky design, you're probably going to prefer this as well. Now that doesn't put any worse when you're hitting it out the middle, it just means there might be a little bit less forgiveness when you get those off strikes. Now finally here we have the Sport 60. This is definitely the most traditional across the whole range. It's a very simple blade, it has really nice shapings and very simple visual sight lines. Now you could definitely see someone like Ricky Fowler putting this in play. This is very much geared towards the kind of thing he's used on tour for years, so you can see why Cobra have kind of added this design into the lineup, and still so many players just love that traditional braid shaping. Now this does have a short neck on it, so it is designed for someone with a bit more arc to the stroke than I have, but let's try it out anyway. You can't leave it in the jaws. This does feel super soft on the face. Now personally I do like that, but I know some people do prefer a bit more of a responsive feel. That face technology is still making these roll out really nicely. Now I can definitely feel this feels a little bit flat to me with that different hosel, but it does swing really nicely, and I actually feel like it's quite stable for the size of the blade. Two out of 3, I'll take it. So I've tested all the models now, and to say this is Cobra's first iteration into the putter market, it's just hard to state how impressive this lineup is. If you're someone who's looking for more forgiveness and stability, the King 3D printed range is going to be one of the best out there. In fact, Cobra is saying the Agera model in this range is one of the most forgiving on the market, and it's easy to see why. It feels super stable over the ball. I also really like the alignment and the visual cues, and you can just see how well Cobra have really positioned that weight around this to give you that extra forgiveness on off-center strikes. Now, these designs are a bit wacky and out there, and they're not going to suit everyone, but that's why it's perfect that they've paired it with this vintage range, which is definitely more classic, and I do really love the looks of. Now, one key thing across this range is just how well the ball rolls off the putter face. The stick face technology that Cobra have put in here is just so good, and was one of the things I was most impressed with. I just loved how easy it was to control the pace on putts, and just found it really consistent across my testing. Now, if you can get your putts rolling well with these putter faces and get that extra stability with your off-center strikes, you're really going to struggle to go wrong. Right, that's all for today. I hope you've enjoyed this review. Do let me know in the comments below if you're going to try any of these models out for 2021. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below or send me a line on Twitter or Instagram. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications too. And if you're after more golf content, head over to the National Club Golfer social media channels for more.